So hello everyone, Phantra Davy here. So I'll talk for a few minutes and then we'll sit as usual. So I was thinking about this desire we can have, strong desire to understand what's happening or to know what's happening, and experience doesn't always lend itself to that. It can be vague or diffuse or subtle, confusing. Experience can be confusing at times, and we won't know exactly what's happening. And particularly the case in practice, I'm talking about when we're sitting. And this desire to know can keep us in a sort of loop of the conceptualizing mind thinking about what's happening. So it can take us from that more sort of subtle level of awareness and to a more sort of, a grosser level, if you like, of thinking about what's happening, trying to fit what's happening into categories that we already know in our experience. And this is a natural tendency of the mind. It's a natural, it's partly perception, isn't it? Perception does its work of sort of creating these labels and these boxes, if you like, that we can fit. Oh, it's that's what's happening. And there's a certain sort of security in knowing what's happening. So that's partly why it's natural to the mind. It helps the mind feel more comfortable. But while it's natural, it is also limiting to the mind. It doesn't give us the opportunity or the potential to go beyond what's already known to the mind, what the mind already knows. And this is why we emphasize awareness, emphasize just knowing what's happening, being with what's happening, even if it's not completely clear what you're being with, because we want to be with experience without as much interpretation as we can. It's our usual mode. We interpret what's happening. We want to rest more with the experience in its sort of raw parts, really, of a sensation or hearing, sound sensation, mental sensation, mental movements. So it's not necessary in doing that to crystallize around a certain sort of concept of what's happening. So we can learn to recognize that desire to know. And this is not the same as having interest in the practice. We want to have interest in what's happening. Desire it's an aspect of craving, or it's a way that craving manifests. This want to know what's happening. So we can recognize that desire in the mind and how it feels in the body and the mind, and make an object of it. Becomes something that can be known as an object in its own right. Then we're less likely to be caught in the belief that I should know what's happening. I need to know what's happening. Do you really? So another aspect is the desire to know why something is happening. Not only what's happening, but why is this happening? And this can create a lot of papancha. For example, you might have identified what's happening. Maybe you recognize that there's some fear in your experience. And it's like, but why? What's it about? Why is it there? And you start creating or recreating or reconstructing the story of fear. And you lose sight of the fact that, well, it's maybe just a momentary experience. It's here in this moment and this moment, next moment. But maybe the next time you remember to look for it, it's not there. So it's naturally moved on. But also we can lose sight when we get caught in the whys and wheres of having a less personal perspective, not taking that momentary experience so personally. I'm such a fearful person. Why is this happening to me again? And with that less personal perspective, we're able to recognize this is just another experience, just another object in the mind, in the moment. So recognizing that desire to know means that we're able to sort of rest in awareness more. We can let awareness do its job, do its work. So we're letting go of a certain sort of desire to control that comes with that need to know or wanting to know often. And opening up to experiences that are sort of less, because they're less sort of easy to categorize, we open up to more subtlety in our own experience. And maybe the last thing, we can recognize that we don't have to have the bigger picture, if you like. We're trying to understand, to have, and maybe not very consciously have a sense of what's happening in the whole of our being or in our life. But we don't have to have that bigger picture. But we can, the more we open to awareness and wisdom, we can let them sort of gradually fill in the pieces of the particular puzzle that's our being or in our life. All we need to think about really is fulfilling the conditions for awareness to know what's happening, know what's happening on a more sort of consistent way, in a more consistent way, on a more consistent level. And at some point when those conditions are fulfilled, and we don't know when, because again, that is not in our control, but what is in our control is the ability to set up the conditions for wisdom to arise through awareness and right view. Okay, let's leave it there. And if you'd like to set yourselves up for sitting.